Good afternoon, morning, evening, whatever you are in the world.
Right.
LinkedIn. I am Casey, and I'm here with my friend Trisha today, and we are going to be chatting about the currently in workflow property in HubSpot, which is set to sunset on April 18th of 2025. Today is March 13th of 2025. So we are about a month out from that sunset. If you are using that property, I hope that this video reaches you and we can talk about some of the alternatives to the property and um, what you can be using. Hello, Trisha. How are you? Oh no, Trisha, are you lagging, or am I lagging? There.
I told you, I think it's me.
You seem to have returned. How are you doing today, Trisha, other than a little laggy?
I'm feeling a little glitchy today, to tell you the truth. That's an interesting beverage. What is that?
So thank you so much for asking. This is Liquid Death Dr. Death. So thank you. I'm sure this is why everyone tuned in today. I am a big fan of Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper is a controversial soda. I understand that. I am on the side of Dr. Pepper. I'm on the Dr. Pepper lover side of the street.
Mhm.
And I recently heard of this, and my husband just bought it for me yesterday, actually. It is a flavored sparkling water that tastes like Dr. Pepper. Um, I've had a few Dr. Pepper alternatives in my life. This is pretty good. And I mean, it's sparkling water. It looks clear, which is a little jarring considering
Mhm.
I'm it helps drinking it out of the can because actually I didn't really know that until I looked in the can. Um, but it's a if you are also a Dr. Pepper person, I would give it a try for sure.
I'm pro DDP.
Yeah? You're on
Yeah,
the
yeah, absolutely.
you're on the Dr. Pepper side with me?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Well, thank you. So, either way, so if you are joining us live, you can definitely let us know how you feel about Dr. Pepper in the comments. But also, if you have any questions about the sunsetting of the currently in workflow property, definitely let us know. If you haven't seen my original post, I posted this about a week ago when a client forwarded me an email about the currently in workflow setting being sunset, and there were quite a few comments on this thread of examples and alternatives. So today, Trisha and I are going to kind of start going through some of those. Before we jump over to HubSpot, though, Trisha, how have you used this property in the past?
Um, I think more specifically, Casey, you have used this property for me in the past. So I would like you to explain, because as I recall, you're the one that set this up. Uh, and added it to most of our workflows, or at least the nurture ones.
All right, fair. So I have set this up quite a few times in many portals. Um, how I typically like to use it is in a nurture email enrollment or in an suppression list for my one-off emails. And the purpose I've had for the property is to exclude people from one-off emails and from additional automated emails if they are currently in a workflow. Purpose there being I don't want them to be in two email workflows at the same time. I know, I know that in my comment section, I've heard a lot of feedback that this property isn't the best for that because you likely also have a lot of data workflows running too. And that's why I don't typically use it as a suppression criteria, workflow. I use it in the enrollment. Let me explain that a little better. Let me share my screen. What do I mean by that? So I would say, let's say I want to enroll people in this. This is a new email workflow. I want to enroll people whose job title equals CEO. And then I would add an and criteria here for currently. Now in workflow. It's currently in workflow some places and now in workflow in other places. That's weird. But and then I would say here now in workflow is false. And that is so that now I'm just enrolling people who are not currently in another workflow and who have the job title of CEO. If I added it to a suppression list, when someone enters a data workflow, they might get removed from this workflow, which I wouldn't want them to do. In this case, if someone's currently in a data workflow, they won't get enrolled. That's true. However, most of my data workflows are not days long. They're maybe minutes long, sometimes an hour, maybe even a day if I have some weird delay on it. But typically that hasn't been an issue for me because of that. So I guess I'm really just trying to defend this property.
So the objective is really, to boil it down, to keep people from getting harassed by you as the content provider. And I know that there's a feature that allows you to govern how many how many days I think between emails are getting something like that. The thing I don't love about that feature is that there often comes a time where there's a thing that you just want everybody to get, and you really want everybody to get it. And with a feature like that turned on, if they're in a nurture workflow and they got an email yesterday, they won't get that important. So I don't love that feature. It doesn't feel like it has enough control. I really liked this workaround because with these types of nurture workflows, they're a little less important than the one-off type emails that a company might send out. So if somebody gets delayed getting enrolled into it, it's not that big a deal.
Mm-hmm. So we know what the problem is. What are some solutions now that we are losing this?
And I went through all those comments that your post got, and I loaded them up into ChatGPT and asked ChatGPT to summarize them for me. And basically got, I think, maybe 3 different flavors. Okay. So Kyle Jepson,
our Lord and Savior.
Yes. And I believe Jillian Strite as well suggested using workflow events in a workflow. There's an event that says somebody's enrolled or unenrolled, using that. Like kind of in combination with a list or a custom property. Other people suggested creating lists, and those were like the 2 main camps, is creating a custom property through use of event logic or list logic.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm in workflows, so we can start with the workflows one. And I think the first response that I saw, Lisa Moore, and I think I even commented on it that this feels like a good idea. Yeah, look at me. It does feel like a good idea. So she was saying that in every workflow, email workflow, I think is safe to say, you would add as the first step to set a new property, custom property, now in workflow, set that to true. It's step 1 of the workflow, and set that to false at the end of the workflow.
Mm-hmm. It might even be like in nurture, because if you're going to use these specifically for nurture workflows, that might just help people really understand what that means.
Yeah, so let's go ahead. I'm going to just start setting it up here. So what I would do is under settings, I'm going to create a new property. So data management properties, contact property, new property. And I like what you said. So in nurture, contact property, I'm going to put it under email information. You can fill out all this at your leisure. And I'm going to make this a single checkbox. So it's going to be either yes or no. Create. Now let's pretend I have this workflow set up. I'm sending emails. Sure, I'm sending that one. Then I'm waiting 7 days and I'm sending another one. Cool. Did I do the same one twice? No, I did two. It doesn't really matter, but so in this example from Lisa, I would just add a step to the beginning of my workflow. And I would do edit record. In nurture is yes. And then at the end of this workflow, I would say edit record. In nurture is no. Then the same way I was using that currently in property, I would add to the enrollment criteria of these nurtures, job title, CEO still, but I want to say in nurture, if I can spell that. Where'd it go? We're gonna refresh and see if that helps me. Contact property, in nurture. I'm gonna say is none of yes and include when nurture is empty. And save. This, I will say, if you're gonna go with this method, this and criteria in your enrollment criteria is necessary because if you're using multiple if someone is in multiple nurtures, then we're going to set them to no prematurely, potentially.
Oh.
So if they are already set to yes, and that's one of my concerns with this method.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too with the other. So that's why I was leaning towards adding them to a list. So a list of people that were in a nurture and set the, whatever logic up to add them for a specific workflow, add them to the list when they get added and remove them when they're done. And that way, if they're in multiple workflows, there would have to be an in out for each one. But I see what you're saying about this one. Also, the thing that I think is dangerous is what if their email bounces after email one? What if they gave you a bad email to begin with, which happens often enough. So email one is going to bounce and they won't finish the workflow, right?
Correct. So if they are on a suppression list, or if you have a goal set up in this workflow, and they just get pulled out of the workflow, they won't get set. That is another issue with this. And then just to close the loop here, if this is something there are potential issues with that, but if you wanted to move towards this method, you would just create a list. This is a contact list. I might need to refresh this. Yeah, my bad. your in nurture list would be your suppression list for any one-off emails that you do. So there's two pieces that you would need if you're using this. You would need a list of people who are set to in nurture. This would be a suppression on any of your one-off emails that you don't want to go out to people who are currently in a nurture workflow. And then the other piece is that you'll need to say in nurture is none of yes if you're going to put them in a new nurture workflow. Otherwise, they might be in two, and then those edit properties can contradict each other.
Mm-hmm.
One of the comments, if you have 500 plus workflows in your instance, we have to manually go in and add it. Yes. The answer to this is yes. And since you brought that up, I just want to bring up one of the comments my colleague Sarah posted. Sarah Lane Hahn, she's a great consultant. She does great work. She said she doesn't use this field. If you have so many workflows sending emails that you can't segment by enrolled by, you may need to consolidate workflows. So if you have 500 plus workflows in your instance, I would consider consolidating. It may be causing more harm than good. If they're sending one email at a time, that may be fine, like an asset delivery email, but then you wouldn't need to necessarily suppress them from other emails because they'd just be getting an asset delivery email. And I think what Sarah means by in her, where if you can't segment by enrolled in, she's referring to, where is it? It moved at some point. Min triggers. Where did that go? Enrollment settings. If anyone knows where that moved, there used to be, do you know, Trisha, where?
I don't know what you're talking about. Because you haven't said it. It's in your head.
I know.
This idea that you're having.
I know. It's in my brain, I think it's this. Unenrolled contacts from other workflows when enrolled in this workflow. So yeah, that's under settings. So this, I think, is what she uses. So.
Okay.
All right. So that is the in nurture if you're doing that in emails. Trisha, you were testing a different nurture method. Do you want
to? So the danger here that we see is erroneously marking somebody that they're not in a workflow anymore, even though they are, because they could be in another one, or they don't finish the workflow, so they're permanently set to yes, and they're not actually in. So then they're getting suppressed from people. So I really, really liked Kyle Jepson's suggestion, and I think it was also Jillian Streit's suggestion of using workflow event logic. And I tested it out, and this just needs more refinement. Because what I did was I set the enrollment trigger to be when an event occurs, workflow enrollment, like enrolled in workflow. And I set up, so if they enrolled in the workflow, I added them to a static list. And then I set up another workflow so that when they unenrolled from a workflow, it would remove them from that same static list. And I liked that because they could be enrolled in 3 different workflows. If they get enrolled in 3, it's 3 additions. If they only get unenrolled from 2 of them, it's 2 subtractions. And they still show up in that list as being in workflow. However, the problem with this approach that needs to be refined is that this is a workflow that they got enrolled in, and it needs to have re-enrollment criteria so that the next time they get enrolled in a workflow, they go through this again. which makes this workflow, both the one to enroll them and unenroll them, or, to add them and take them away from that static list, those are enrollments into a workflow. And so it just looped, and people were just getting added to the list and taken off and added and taken off. So make that better, Casey.
Okay, so just making sure I understand. The problem was, if I say they have completed, enrolled in workflow, and then I have, let me just do a second workflow. And then I'm going to just in nurture test list. And I'm going to save this as a static list just for our example.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then I have this. So workflow 1 that I would name, because I have very good naming conventions and data hygiene, but I would then say static list, nurture, save. And then my second workflow would say, when an event occurs, workflow, unenrolled from workflow, save, static, remove from static list, nurture, save.
Yes, exactly.
The problem with this is when they get enrolled in this workflow, they're
enrolled in a workflow.
They enrolled in a workflow, and when they complete this workflow, they're unenrolled from a workflow.
Right.
I think, and I don't know how the criteria works.
And then I was thinking that we could add these two workflows as a suppression list to people being enrolled in this workflow. And that's when my brain broke.
I think what you'd have to do here is you would have to choose the workflows. So you would have to choose all of your email workflows as they were removed from, and all of your, and the same on the enrolled in workflow.
And that's exactly what I didn't love about the third option.
I think the third option is the best option, although I agree. I know I don't like it either. I want to be clear. Put it on the record.
Yeah. What I would love to avoid at all costs is having to create a situation where you have to maintain a list of your current nurture workflows. But you know what, to be honest, I think I'm going to walk back on that, because to be honest, if you have multiple nurture workflows, you should have a strategy for those. You should have a clearly documented map of which personas are getting enrolled in which of those nurture workflows at which time, and what the unenrollment and unenrollment criteria are. And if they're progressive, why they're progressing when they progress. And to, I think, Sarah's point, you shouldn't have 150 of them.
Mm-hmm.
So
this is the best solution I have. I'm going to be honest with you, LinkedIn. The best solution I have after thinking about this for about a week is creating a contact list saying workflow status is currently in, and then you add all of your email nurtures. Mm-hmm. And then this is your suppression. This is your suppression list. This is your suppression list. You won't want to use, again, you won't want to actually use this as a suppression list on a workflow. You will not want to add that here, because once they are in that workflow, they will get removed from the workflow. You would want to add that as a filter in your criteria to say, and list membership is not currently in workflow.
Mhm.
This is where you would want to add that. But you would definitely want to add it as a suppression list in your one-off emails if you are prioritizing your nurture emails over your one-off emails. Strict.
Yeah.
So, and the problems I have with this, just to be clear, is that every time you launch a new workflow, it's fairly easy to set up, really. You just, you know, I don't know, you just add the workflows in, and you have the list. The problem I have with this is the maintenance.
Mhm.
So we're gonna be every time we launch a new workflow, we have to remember to add it to that list. Not
Mhm.
the end of the world, not terribly hard even, but we're all human and
And we don't want like, this is the type of thing where you might be setting yourself up to fail someday if you don't have a good process for making sure that you look at this periodically.
Mhm.
But like I said, if you're doing nurtures and you don't have a strategy of when you're using them and for which people mapped out, shame on you. That's that's you're just asking you're you're probably sending people all kinds of repetitive stuff anyway.
Mhm.
So just, map it out. Have a plan.
There's a couple more comments I just wanna read through, before we wrap up. If you have any comments, questions, now is your time to drop them in the comments of this. So Crystal said, what about creating a custom field that counts the number of workflows they're enrolled in? Each workflow appends the number +1 at the beginning and -1 at the end. Then a list could track all contacts enrolled in 2 or more workflows. That way you could make sure they aren't getting too many emails, but would still get a few relevant content pieces. Then you could play with the best numbers in your situation. I think this means that I think, Crystal, what you're saying is you do sometimes have people in multiple workflows at the same time. Um, to be honest, that would make me really nervous because I'd be nervous that we're sending people the same, like, multiple emails at the same time. I pretty much, as a best practice, only send people into one email nurture workflow at a time. Um, and if you have them in multiple email nurtures at a time, I would think about, like, what are you sending them and is that necessary? Um, Trisha also knows I actually don't love keeping people in workflows very long. Um, a month is really the max I like to keep anyone in a workflow. Any longer, and you're not going to be sending them relevant content anymore. I find that one-off emails are way better for engagement because you can change that content based on what's happening right now for them. Um,
Mhm.
if you just send them in a workflow, and how often are you revisiting those emails?
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing if it's a course,
Mhm,
but I hope that course isn't a month and a half long.
mhm,
Also for the people that you created it for. I
mhm,
think that that suggestion has the same sort of issues that we ran into with the first
mhm,
workflow that you created too, is that not everybody completes a workflow. Um, and the one that I tested out with the event filters of adding and subtracting, like, I think you're still going to have to solve for either a looping situation or people not completing a workflow and therefore their counter isn't getting updated. And you
mhm.
know what? At the end of the day, I think this is why HubSpot scrapped this property because you and I have both seen that a lot of times that true false field isn't always accurate.
Correct.
Um, and it's been really problematic in the past. So,
Yeah, Kyle said that in his initial response, and my response to him was, "I can't fix that one." Like, yes, that's true.
I know.
Like,
I
"Kyle, could we make it
feel
work better?"
I feel wholly unequipped. I mean, HubSpot has whole developer teams working on this, and I'm not a developer, you're not a developer. We're not going to figure this out.
Mhm. Unfortunately.
If they can't figure out, we're not going to make it better than they did.
Mhm.
So I think you're right, ma'am. You got to create a discrete list of the workflows that you want to control for having multiple enrollments in.
Yeah. If you have 500 plus workflows, I am sorry for you. That is going to make it a lot harder. I would only add workflows to that list that are sending people emails over time. If it is an asset delivery email, I wouldn't include that. However, if you have 2 emails going out, even every once in a while, I'll have an asset delivery email that sends the asset, then 2 days later sends a follow-up email. I'd probably include that in this list too. However, could I consolidate that is maybe a good question to start asking. Could I send the asset and then enroll everyone that receives assets into one workflow that sends the same like follow-up email 2 days later, and then I only have to. Trisha's giving me eyes like.
No, I think we've done that, haven't we?
Yeah. So just look at, if you have 500 plus workflows that are all sending emails over multiple days, I would look at consolidating those if you can. Is what I would say.
Just from an efficiency standpoint too, of like how time it takes to create and manage and maintain all those, and report and understand how they're like how well they're doing, that feels like a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you have any more questions, if you have trouble setting up a suppression list like this, please feel free to comment. Feel free to message Trisha or myself. We are happy to answer any additional questions. And good luck.
Good luck. Tell us what you end up doing.
Yeah, and if you have a better idea, if you come up with something better, please let us know. Please. All right. Thank you all. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Bye.